Hello, so I just want to make an update on all the developments. Firstly, one thing I want to get out of the way. Across the UK today, there was an initiative for people to come out of their streets whilst keeping within the social distancing, of course, or from their windows, clap for NHS staff. Um, I think that was a great initiative, and it was good to see a lot of people done that, including on my street. But that's kind of mixed feelings for me. I feel good about the gesture and I feel good about people appreciating the NHS staff, but I feel shit because I wasn't there. And the reason being, I had kind of pre-existing, I may have mentioned it on this channel before, pre-existing a sort of sleeping disorder, delayed sleep phase syndrome, which means I often stay awake very late and frankly sleep throughout much of the day. And also partly the nature of my work, I teach online and I'm dealing with different time zones, but I'm seeing people post this stuff, and whilst I feel good about it, shows the spirit of the community, and I'm pleased to see my street was doing it. I mean, I wasn't ignorant of it. I knew this was happening, but I'd forgotten honestly that it was today, and frankly, I feel a bit shit about it. I seem to be the only bugger that hasn't done it. I'm sure I'm not, but hope no one thinks that I don't care. I'm a little bit feeling a bit down about that. Just the fact that other people were taking part and I wasn't there, and I just don't want that to lead to to any false perception. I'm not saying it will, by the way. My neighbours are all, I get on with them all. It's not like that, but just I feel a bit shit about it because I do look at what the NHS staff do, and I'm massively grateful. My mum was an NHS nurse for 40 years, so it was a good gesture anyway. Um, There is a number of noteworthy developments today. We've had the biggest single day increase in deaths, which is certainly concerning. A few days ago, the increase had, well, there was a decrease. So we had 85 deaths, and then I think it was 41 the next day. So I thought, okay, that's good, that's going down. It was 115 today. We now stand at 578 deaths. The United States has now surpassed China with cases, not with deaths, but with cases. Um, and California, as an example, in its big cities in Los Angeles and San Francisco, they're now getting overwhelmed. New York City has had an abundance of cases. Um, the situation in Spain continues to escalate, and in Italy, there are fears that the south of the country could end up like the north. I have a friend in South Korea. He's teaching just outside Seoul. He's a first-time teacher. I actually gave him a message saying, look, if maybe you should take this seriously. I mean, not the virus itself, but the implications, because Dominic Raab has suggested it may be very hard to get a flight out of countries. I know a lot of tourists are stranded. I have huge sympathy with them. So the advice now is if you're abroad, if you're a British national abroad, and by the way, that applies if you're watching this video, if you can get available flights out now, if you're just a tourist rather than working there, because it may become increasingly difficult to do so. A lot of airlines are cancelling flights. Um, Nothing, like I say, in my lifetime has shook up the world the way this thing has, and I think we may be on the cusp of a global recession just on top of all of this. And I have to say, I've been very critical of the Chinese government, and I stand by everything I've said, but I have to say the way that Trump has handled this is borderline pathetic. I mean, he has said he thinks things will get back up to normal by Easter. That's unduly optimistic, but it's also reckless because this is the president of the United States basically telling people to be complacent. The medical staff who are on the front line are telling a different story. He's talking about having churches filled at Easter at a time when all the advice is avoid social gatherings. And this isn't some developing country where there's limited education. This is the president of the United States saying this. Bear in mind, Trump has really changed his statements over time. In the beginning, he said, "Oh, we've just got a few cases and it will slow down." He had absolutely no qualifications to say that. Trump has reveled on bashing experts and bashing the so-called establishment. This is one time, really, when we all need to listen to the experts. Governments especially need to be listening to what top doctors and scientists are saying about this, and virologists. So for Trump to come out early on and say, "Oh, we have very few cases and numbers are going down," to give that sort of impression was disgraceful. He had no way to know that. So it was just a pathetic soundbite to pitch to his base. And I think history will judge Trump harshly in terms of his response to this. As I understand it, the federal government is giving out salary for all workers. That's good, but the healthcare issue is still a major, major sticking point, particularly in the American situation. But honestly, we're not much better here. I mean, whilst Johnson has got a lot of praise for his efforts now, or rather a lot of support, there is a strong argument to be made that this happened too late and he too was complacent for too long. We should have been following our neighbours in the rest of Europe. I spoke to a close Chinese friend. She lives in Berlin. Germany's only had 120 deaths. I mean, comparatively, that's low compared to other European countries. They did have strict measures a few weeks ago, but now, I mean, it'd be wrong to say things are back to normal, but she was at work as usual. And it seems that Britain has not really jumped on ahead of this. I think the Johnson administration was procrastinating for too long, maybe being a bit complacent, just issuing big sort of wash your hands advice. Maybe the lockdown should have come a lot earlier, and we may not have 578 deaths. What concerns me is these are not pleasant deaths, and I don't want to be alarmist, but we hear so many people die of the seasonal flu every year, and there's 500,000 deaths in the UK every year of all causes. So in that sense, 578 is still a blip compared to, and I don't want to be insensitive by saying that, but compared to the overall number of deaths. However, in fact, I'll apologise for what I've just said. That did sound a bit flippant, but that's the thing. People who have lost loved ones, and this is apparently it's physically painful. You get aches and pains in your muscles. It's nauseating. It's high fever. It doesn't sound pleasant. And what is concerning is now we're hearing about healthy young people with no pre-existing conditions. There was a young woman, for example, who are dying. That is concerning. I believe around the world the number of cases is going to be much, much higher than what is being officially reported by Johns Hopkins University, which is 500,000 cases. I think it's going to be in the millions. I think the deaths will probably be higher as well because in maybe some developing areas, maybe it's not being reported. Maybe it's being mixed up with other causes of death, particularly with older people. Um, but I think maybe the most pressing concern now is actually the economic fallout from this thing. So I'm going to try and look into what I can do, what specific role I could do. Frankly, I do feel, I don't mean to go on about this, but I do feel a bit shit about not taking part in that thing because I think it was a very good gesture. Um, anyway, I know that the NHS has had over 500,000 volunteers. Whether that's only people who can drive or not, I don't know. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to look into applying for jobs in stores because they may have a bigger influx now of like shelf stackers, that sort of thing. Jobs where otherwise it would have been fussy about your CV. I wasn't getting jobs because I've been working for myself, hence I didn't have references for employers. But I think that's why I was finding it difficult to get that sort of work. But in these circumstances, it may be easier. So I'm certainly going to look into that. I want to do my role in all of this as much as I can. So I'll abide by the restrictions, of course. But anyway, that's the latest news. But I do think Trump's handling of this has been based on his popular sound bites, based on complacent optimism, and I do not think it comes across well. Whilst Trump is telling off reporters, Joe Biden, whatever faults he may have, has been following the medical advice. He's sounded statesmanlike. And yes, I know sometimes he fumbles his words. It's an issue. It is a legitimate issue, particularly given his age. But I do think Biden has come across a lot more statesmanlike than the incumbent right now. That's my perception. But anyway, that's the latest.